So you made a detailed PowerPoint presentation and gave a compelling demonstration with all the cogent arguments possible. But your audience merely looked dazzled, in fact bored, and you're like, what went wrong? You see, your analytical might be good, but your anecdotal was certainly bad. A carefully crafted story can do wonders to your presentation. The key is to identify which narrative strategies are relevant for what circumstances, and this is going to be our point of discussion in this video series. Subscribe. You see, analysis might excite the mind, but it rarely offers a route to the heart, and that's where we want to go if we want to motivate people. And good leadership involves inspiring people to act positively, sometimes even under adverse circumstances. Although good business arguments are made on the basis of numbers, but they are typically approved by a story. Hence, storytelling can translate those dry facts and numbers into a compelling picture of a leader's goals. Storytelling is an increasingly accepted way to achieve management goals, but leaders need to use a variety of narratives to achieve different aims. Like if your objective is to spark action, you will need a story that describes how a successful change was made in the past, and it should also allow the listeners to put that story in their situation and then think about it. And while you are telling it, you will also need to avoid sharing excessive details, as it might deviate the audiences from the main purpose of the story. So I told this little story to inspire some of the irregular students in some of my batches as well. That Malala Yousafzai is the youngest person to receive Nobel Peace Prize award at the age of 14 only. She was shot in the head by Taliban terrorists for merely demanding rights to education for girls. That's all that she demanded, and she was shot in the head for it. And those irregular students had access to freedom of education without any implications, which they had little value for. So the moral is simple. Freedom is undervalued unless it is taken from you. Hence, we must educate ourselves, we must study while and because we can. And since then, those students have been fairly, I would say largely regular. If the objective of your story is to communicate who you are, and in fact it's necessary as well, because in order to trust you, your audience must know you. So you will need a story that provides an engaging drama and reveals some of your strengths and vulnerability from your past. And in telling your story, you must also figure out whether your audience has the time and the inclination to hear your story. Your audience's response after listening to your story must be like, oh, I didn't know this about it. Jack Welch's success story in making General Electric a winner was undoubtedly aided by his own ability to tell his own story, which includes a tongue lashing he once received from his mother when he hurled a hockey stick across the ice after a disappointing loss. So as he tells in his memoir, Jack, straight from the gut, "You punk," she said, "if you don't know how to lose, you will never know how to win." And I too hail from Massachusetts, and in our quest to victory, we are not afraid to lose. If your objective is to transmit values, then you should tell a story that feels familiar to the audience and will prompt discussions about the issues being raised by the values being promoted. So you should use believable characters and situations, and never forget that your story must be consistent with your own actions. Your story must inspire responses such as, "Yeah, that's absolutely right, that's totally true." One day, a woman came to Gautam Buddha with her little son and said, "Please tell my son to stop eating sugar." Gautam Buddha looked at the woman and her little son and responded, "Bring him back to me 3 weeks later." The woman was flabbergasted, but she agreed and returned 3 weeks later with her son. So Buddha commanded the son, "Stop eating sugar, son." And the woman was surprised and she said, "Why didn't you tell him this 3 weeks ago?" To which Buddha responded that 3 weeks ago I myself was eating sugar. So what we take from this story is that we should only preach what we practice ourselves. Cheers. If your objective is to share knowledge, so you will need a story that focuses on mistakes made and shows in some detail how they were corrected, and also provides an explanations of why certain solutions worked. Now, in telling such a story, you will need to solicit an alternative with an explanation and also, if possible, provide a solution. Now, such a story should be able to prompt responses such as, "Wow, I would better watch that in future." Once upon a time, two frogs fell into a big bucket of milk. They swam around for a while and realized that the wall, the edge of the milk bucket, was too high and too steep for them to jump out of it without any aid or help. The first frog was a negative thinker and stopped trying after a while and ended up making his grave into the bucket. The second one, however, was a positive thinker and persistent. He kept swimming and stirring the milk, and his efforts were rewarded later. A prolonged swimming and stirring of the milk caused a ball of butter to frame within the bucket. The frog hopped onto it and jumped out of the bucket. So what we learn from this story is a positive psychology, persistence, perseverance always pays off sooner or later. So always be positive. Cheers. If the objective of your story is to lead people into the future, so you will need a story that evokes the future you want to create without providing excessive detail that may turn out to be wrong. You will also need to be sure of your storytelling skills. Otherwise, you can use a story in which the past can serve as a springboard to the future. Your story should be able to inspire responses like, "Yeah, let's do it. When do we get started?" Cheers. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day our children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by their religion, caste, gender, or skin color, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that one day, at the crown of the nation Kashmir, the sons and daughters of all the religions will be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day no one will be loved or unloved on the basis of their religion, or forced into conversion for love or marriage, or discriminated against. I have a dream that one day our country, sweltering with the heat of injustice and oppression towards the underprivileged, will